Welcome to this session of Council Matters. Council Matters is a local television show that looks at the things that citizens of Oakville are concerned about, and we do that in a two-part show. First, the topic and the citizens who represent it and or can speak to it, and then a panel of 3 members of council and I discuss what we could do in response. And in that way, we try to show how council matters. I call the show Council Matters because the Municipal Act says that all municipal power is exercised only by council and only by resolution. And so you can see from that that it does matter what council thinks and does. With us today are Sue Hyatt, who is a member of Citizens for Clean Air, Gabriella Kalapos, who is the Executive Director of the Clean Air Partnership, and Karen Brock, who is the Oakvillegreen President. Gabby, can you explain what the Clean Air Partnership does?
Yeah, we're an charitable environmental organization, and our mission is to build more sustainable, resilient, and livable communities. And one of the ways we try and do that is we analyze and look around for where all the clean air and climate change actions are happening within municipalities. And then our job is to make sure that we take those examples and get them to share what they are doing with all of their other municipalities in the region and across southern Ontario. And then identifying that, asking the question that if one jurisdiction can do it, why couldn't all the other jurisdictions do it? And from that, moving pilot project initiatives to become much more transferable, implemented in many different areas, and becoming business as usual.
As mayor, I get that a lot from other members of other councils who've heard of the things that we've done. And Sue and Karen, your organizations have been the front edge, or the leading edge of a lot of what we've done in Oakville to create a healthier environment. And we're sort of focusing on the atmosphere, on the air we breathe today. But we can, there's lots of spines that lead off of that. One of the things that I'm the proudest of is our health protection air quality bylaw, which was a product of an episode that you were a starring player in, Sue. How have you, what ways have you seen that we could improve our work on improving a healthy environment?
Well, Mayor Burton, I think C4CA was created around, it was an organization that was created during the fight around the power plant in Oakville that began in 2009. And I think there are a couple of things that as citizens we should look back and be proud of in the town of Oakville. Number one, the citizens came together because they thought they were under threat. And I think we set new standards for municipalities working with for a municipality working with its citizens and citizen engagement. And I think that's critically important. I would say that let's not do it just during a crisis, but I would challenge you to continue to do that as a best practice standard. So that's the first challenge I'd like to put on the table for you and council.
Challenge met.
Challenge met. So let's talk about stakeholder engagement and ongoing stakeholder engagement. The second thing is that Oakville is not an island. So we learned very quickly during that issue where C4CA fought so hard, along with your leadership and council's leadership, Kevin Flynn's leadership, etc., that we're not an island and we're dependent on all these other, the region, the province, the federal government, nearby communities. And so the health protection air quality bylaw that you brought in and that is in the town today, I think is an example of what other municipalities could use and look at in terms of protecting their air quality. So the second challenge I would put on the table, the first being stakeholder engagement, the second is what do we want next? So we don't want to just fight for something that we thought we were under threat, so we were forced to fight. But the other thing I would put on the table is what do you mean by, in the future, what do we want Oakville to be? Yes, it's the livable town, the most livable town in Canada. I agree with you. I would challenge council and say, well, let's think about smart cities and healthy cities. What does that mean? It means air quality in the future. It means intergenerational people coming together working for their town, and I'll say a little bit more about that later. But I think it's beyond the most livable town. I think it's into smart, healthy communities of the future, dealing with things like climate change. How are we preparing for climate change, etc. So I'll
Karen,
stop there.
how about you? Your organization, Oakvillegreen, the word green embodies the trees that you're often associated with promoting the saving of or the creation of, and both are clearly important. What ways would you like to see the town improve?
Green infrastructure probably comes as no surprise to you that you can link green infrastructure with improved air quality. And certainly statistics show that for every 1% of urban forest canopy, you can increase the number of good or very good air quality days from poor and moderate. So even though we have done wonderful things in conjunction with the town, planting on public property, trees we know do work very hard by not only creating oxygen, taking out the CO2, wonderful in lots of other ways, but what I would like to see is ways that we can work together. We're all in the same fishbowl of trying to work planting trees on private property. And sometimes that's trickier, and there's lots of potential, but reducing barriers for people, giving them the information so that we can look at the benefits of, and even from energy conservation, again, it's that cycle, trees to shade your home, reduce energy use, so, and again, better for the grid and better for air quality. So.
Well, one of the initiatives that you did, that your organization did, that I really, really loved, was the collecting of seed from the Great Oak on Bronte Road, and getting private individuals to plant them and grow descendants of that tree. Right. There was, when we were fighting to save that tree in this town, the skeptics were saying that the tree was so old it would die, and no matter what was done around the construction of the road, it would kill it, and it was a waste of $300,000 to go around the tree, and we'd be sorry. That was the charge, and I thought the first collection of seed to create descendants might have been, just in case they're right. But as I look at that tree every year since, it looks just fine to me.
I drove past it this morning and I smile every time I do. And I have lots of those saplings still in my backyard, fostering them, growing them bigger. And I planted one at a condo development called The Oaks on 6th Line with a woman who knew Joyce Burnell, who was, as you know, involved in saving that tree. So it's really heartwarming, as you say, and it's important from a genetic point of view to plant trees that we know are not only going to survive, and climate change is posing a lot of problems for even the trees that we have planted, but to thrive. So genetically, Oakvillegreen is still focused on collecting seed from strong, healthy heritage trees.
So will you have another go at fostering the children of the Great Oak on Bronte Road?
Well, I think we're still open for business. We're still selling those saplings, and I think we'll have another big promotion. It was wildly successful, beyond, financially. Obviously, it was a fundraiser for Oakvillegreen, but heartwarming stories of people saying, why they were buying these trees and who they were related to and who they knew, and their connection to Oakville. But air quality obviously is key, and by planting more trees, no matter what kind of trees they are, but certainly planting the right tree is important. But we'd love to move ahead with corporations and private citizens too.
Gabby, I love that your organization exists, and I love the mission of spreading good ideas. One of the Health Protection Air Quality Bylaw, which is it's my favorite, came out of the struggle that Sue discussed. But the other thing that came out of it that is, I think, kind of interesting is we have a citizen engagement, a public engagement protocol, policy basically, that explains how we do public consultation. It's like a charter of rights or a charter of expectations that says that you shouldn't be surprised by what we do, and we'll work hard to make sure you know. The first wide citizen issue was about 15 in this town was about 15 years ago, when we woke up one day and suddenly discovered that the almost 8,000 acres north of Dundas was all going to be urbanized, and there were environmental lands up there that we wanted to save. And note, the nub of this was that we were taken by surprise, and we were told, "Oh, you're too late. It's already done." Ooh. And so the reason we have our public engagement standards is to prevent that from ever happening again. We would love to, C4CA would work with you, Oakvillegreen would work with you, Council and I would work with you, do anything we could to help spread these things. I have been approached by councillors in other cities wanting to bring them in, but so far the rest of their
bylaws
cities
are a tough fight, aren't they?
Yeah, there's been we haven't really had any. We're unique on these things right now still.
But the actions to take place, I think one of the most interesting things that have come out of that was the citizen engagement, but it was also the fact that people were starting to talk about energy and the pros and the cons and the choices that we make on a day-to-day basis, and why do we need a gas plant in the first place? It's meeting a demand for energy. We all use energy, we all want energy. No one wants to go without. The question is, how do we use it more efficiently, and how do we have energy that doesn't impact our public health as much? And there's huge opportunities for that. I think one of the interesting things that I see at a lot of kind of where energy is moving and energy generation is moving to in smarter communities is that it is, you're going to play the game of spot the power plant. Our old school mentality of building big, huge infrastructure power plants, while that's still going to be necessary in certain parts, we're going to need to augment that with local generation of electricity and power so that we can then meet our own needs on energy. And I think that's the interesting thing, is you can see combined heat and power plants and kind of building in that kind of efficiency and green power opportunities, which allows for a lot more opportunities for local ownership of the energy needs that we have. And I see that as a wonderful direction, that has opportunities all across the region.
Well, that's a lovely last word, I think, for this topic. And I should also say that we're happy to receive good ideas from other communities too. So never feel reluctant to share the good ideas of others, because I know this council is dedicated to continuous improvement, and the only way to be the best is to keep working at being better.
Can I give a suggestion?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'd actually, one of the things that I think is a huge opportunity is when you look at where our air pollution is coming from, locally generated air pollution, you see transportation, no doubt, huge, and it's not going to get any smaller, so we really need to deal with our transportation issues. And we've evolved as a region. We can no longer, mathematically, we will not be able to get around in our single occupancy vehicles. Congestion, air pollution, all of these things are going to be issues. It's going to take a huge amount of time for us. So we have to find a much more diverse way with vehicles, with public transit, with active transportation, and we have to invest in infrastructure that provides opportunities for that. But one of the other areas that is often sometimes forgotten is building energy use is huge, and we use a lot of natural gas for that. So our local opportunities to do energy efficiency with our existing building stock is a huge opportunity for reducing our energy use and our air pollution.
So you're talking about retrofitting?
I'm talking about, retrofitting our buildings. And then one of the huge barriers that is existing with retrofitting our buildings is the initial upfront costs. So the amendment that was made from the provincial government on the Municipal Act allowing local improvement charges to be used for energy efficiency and green energy opportunities. And then the money is invested up front. The municipality, which is an excellent bond rating, gets the loan, provides that loan to the householder, householder, the householder pays back that energy efficiency loan on their on top of their tax bill, and then gets an excellent interest rate, because you're not going to get a better interest rate than the municipality has. And then that is invested over time, and it's paid back through the energy savings that that home encounters. An additional thing is sometimes one of the other areas is that where you're not sure how long you're going to live in your home. So if you have a payback on your energy efficiency of 10 years and you're not sure that you're going to live there for 10 years, that's a barrier for people because they don't want to invest it in and not then have that return coming to them. But now what happens is that loan stays with the property and not with the owner, so it gets transferred to the next owner. And then you have a more efficient, more comfortable home, and it doesn't come out of your initial upfront costs. It's paid back through energy savings.
Yes, and in fact, that gives the town security and confidence in getting its money back.
Yeah.
And our staff, our council and I, we all like that part of it, and we're hoping to see take-up. Sometimes take-up's very slow. We already have the ability for people to generate solar power on their roof and sell it back into the grid. And I know of 3 homes that are doing it out of our 60,000 homes. So it's going to be a slow ramp, I think.
Yeah.
So I think where council can affect this, though, Mayor Burton, is that the leadership now needs to come from you. I don't think it's going to come from the citizens necessarily, because they're all busy doing all the things that they have to do every day. They don't see a threat right now, so they're not going to go to the barricades like they did 2 or 3 years ago. So where does that come from? It comes from you, and it comes from council. And I think the next chapter is smart cities, healthy futures, and all of these initiatives start pulling those things together. Let's bring in a council of citizens and get them active. Let's engage our senior citizens.
Yeah.
There are folks that would love to do that.
These are great topics to continue to pursue, and we will in the years ahead. And I thank you very much for opening up these lines of thought and discussion. And we will be right back with 3 members of council to see how council can matter with all of these things. Thanks for staying with us. I'm joined now by 3 members of Oakville Council. Councillor Allan Elgar, who represents the populous, gigantic Northwest Ward of Oakville, and Cathy Duddeck, who, like Allan, represents the town of Oakville, not only at the town, but at the regional level, and she represents the south central part of Oakville. And Dave Gittings, who represents the southeast part of Oakville on Oakville Council. Thanks very much for being here today. You heard the challenges that the citizens threw our way. What do you respond? What do you think we should do? Cathy, why don't you go first?
Well, I think we're already doing as pointed out, we're doing quite a lot, but we can always do better. Recently, we just dealt with the open air burning bylaw, which was, I know, something, sometimes it can sound somewhat trivial to some people, but to other people, it has a huge impact on their enjoyment of their property. And as Karen had mentioned, the issue of private tree bylaws, private tree plantings, continues to be an issue. I've heard from several people when we were telling them that we were revising our private tree bylaw, that they were concerned, why should I bother planting trees? You're only going to penalize me via permit or whatever, should I have to take them down? So there has to be that sort of engagement and education as to why it's important to plant trees on their property and the kind of trees they should be planting on their property. And it's not just the air. It can also be things such as your heating during the winter. If you have screening, you're increasing the capability to lower your home heating bills.
Dave, how do you respond?
Well, in terms, if you look at the major emitters that we had 14 at one point a couple of years ago. That dropped to 6. That should drop to 4 this year. So that's controlling the emissions. The other part is how do we absorb what's there? And we're looking at the private tree bylaw now, public consultation. And as Karen from Oakvillegreen said, we've got to plant more trees. I'm extremely proud when I talk to counterparts in other municipalities what we're doing with our emerald ash borer. A lot of municipalities are amazed at the efforts we're going to preserve a number of our town trees, as well as engaging the citizens to treat their own ash tree on their property.
Yeah, it's a fateful mix, and the edge here is that for a significant tree, it's cheaper to treat it than to take it down. Allan, you were a key part of all of you were, in adopting our 2057 goal for the 200th anniversary of the town to increase our tree canopy from the 28 or 29% that we found 8 years ago to the 40% that's considered to be the healthy level. In that context, and listening to what the citizens were asking us to take up next, what did you hear that you'd like to pursue?
Well, I think what we're doing everything we can in Oakville. However, I'm really concerned that we're kind of fiddling while Rome burns. We need help. We need help at the provincial level and the federal level. And we really need help at the provincial level so that we can, in fact, change the whole mindset of transportation when it comes to funding of public transit, because currently, based on development charges, everybody looks back in the rearview mirror 10 years to see what is the average level of modal split and by that I mean whether you're using the bus or transit or driving a car. We are building communities right now where everyone still has a car and needs a car to get to their place of business.
Sure.
And we are not addressing things. We are trying to, but until the provincial government comes up and meets us and says, okay, if you're building a new community, the funding for public transit has to come from the development industry. It has to. Nobody wants it on their backs. We've been a modal split of 7% now for 20 years. Going forward in the regional plan, never mind Oakville's plan, they're saying, oh, we're going to have a modal split of 20 to 30%. So we're not moving.
So do I understand, I just want to make sure the public understands what you're saying. The formula for how much, for what we can charge for is based on the past, and that means we're kind of, by math, forced to keep building the old rather than what you want, which is a formula based on the need of the future.
Absolutely correct. We need that for sure. We also need legislation which allows us to do building of district energy, because right now every house has got its own chimney. Those are polluters. Those polluters add to the greenhouse gases where we haven't turned around and driven down the greenhouse gas levels. All we're doing is we're playing this game from the Kyoto Protocol, where we were at 521 megatons. We said, okay, we're going to really cut this, but from the 1990 levels, we're going to cut it 6%. 2006, we're sitting at over 720, and now, of course, we blew that away, and we're now saying, well, we've got this new 2020 plan where we're going to reduce greenhouse gas levels by a target of 2005 by 15%. which we were already over that in 2006.
Yeah, and all those numbers, I got lost where we are and what we're gonna do. And maybe that was the plan.
Well, I think that is the plan, that they're really not doing much to address it.
I want to make sure the public know that this town has the expertise to build district energy. We invested heavily in that, and we're very proud of that ability. And so as soon as we get the ability from the province to do it, we'll be ready to go. Cathy, how do you respond?
Well, Alan raised a very crucial point, and that is our other partners being the federal and the provincial. Not only from a funding, but as he points out, have the tools to be able to create some of these initiatives. And again, getting back to the private tree bylaw, the biggest problem I see is at the development level. And currently we don't have any tools in our toolkit to prevent a developer from coming in and basically moonscaping, to coin a word that's been used. We have no tools available to us because they're protected under the planning and the development process. We need to get those tools available to us if we're going to make any headway.
Well, we have some small tools. We can designate a tree a heritage tree, and we've done that once.
Okay.
And we also have, under site plan, landscape control. And using our site plan power, we have, in at least one instance, required the replacement of more than they took down. Mm-hmm. So we do have some hope to be able to continue to develop in that way. I certainly agree with you that it would be wonderful to be able to prevent moonscaping. Mm-hmm. I only meant to say it's not hopeless, and we don't have to give up.
No, I agree.
Dave, we've got about a minute left. Is there a single thing, a particular thing that stood out from the panel that you'd like to see us focus on?
Conservation. For every kilowatt hour that isn't used, it reduces emissions and it saves people money. It's an ideal way. Oakville Hydro has the peak saver plan for residences. You get the setback thermostat and the ability for them to very minor reductions on hot days when we're at risk of smog. And they also work with Oakville businesses. They've spent $2 million working with 200 businesses in town to help retrofit and reduce their energy costs. Great program.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I think it's very important the way this show functions. I think it helps people see how council matters. It helps them see that it's what the citizens tell us that direct us. And as I say goodbye, I'd like to tell you that Peak Saver works. I've had it since it came out. I have never been inconvenienced by it, and I believe that, and you get a free thermostat if you subscribe to it. So I do hope that not only will you continue to tune us in on Council Matters, I also hope that you'll give serious consideration to joining those like me who are using and enjoying the benefits of the Peak Saver technology. Thank you very much for looking at how Council Matters.